Imam C, you have the floor, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن تستفتحوا فقد جاءكم الفتح نصر من الله وفتح قريب وبشر المؤمنين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل والله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر وسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much, Imam C. Bishop Rodrigo, you have the floor, please.
Lord God Jehovah, we ask but by Holy Spirit's power that you will descend mightily upon this commission as we seek out the truth, that you will help us to bring out the things that were not so pleasant within our society, and that in the process you will also help us to have a forgiving spirit and also a reconciliation spirit. And we pray that as the TRRC continues its sitting, that all and sundry will have one mind, one spirit, that of love, that of compassion, that of forgiveness, and that of reconciliation. And so we prayed that you will help all those who will come and testify here, that they have nothing to fear but to speak the truth, and nothing but the truth. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Council, are we ready with today's witness?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, commissioners, distinguished members of the audience. Indeed, we are ready to proceed, and I'm pleased to announce that Ms. Horeja Balagay would be leading our next witness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. Can we proceed and get the witness in, please?
Indeed. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, commissioners. I ask the usher to bring in the witness and administer the oath.
I, Babucarr Malick Jeng.
I, Babucarr Malick Jeng.
Do swear that.
Do swear that.
I'll speak the truth.
I'll speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please take a seat. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the commission. As you know, my name is Horeja Balagay, and I will be leading your questioning on behalf of the commissioners. Thank you very much for coming all the way here to testify before the commission. A few preliminary things. There is interpretation going on into the local languages, as well as transcription. Therefore, I ask you to speak slowly and take your time to go through your testimony. I would recommend that you switch the mic on and leave it on. I will switch mine on and off. So please state your full name.
Good morning. My name is Babucarr Malick Jeng.
Are you known by any other name?
In the army, I was called Rsm Jeng. Outside the army, I've been called Babs Jeng.
What do the letters RSM stand for?
Regimental Sergeant Major.
When were you born?
Born 28th of March, 1963.
RSM, can you tell us a bit about your educational background? Where did you go to school and what did you study?
Please, Council, before we start, I would kindly like to ask if we can give a minute silence for my fellow soldiers who lost their life in November 11, as we are now into the second session of the TRRC, which covers the November 11. Please.
I would defer that request to Mr. Chairman. The witness would like us to observe a minute of silence. If that is fine with you, then we would proceed to do so.
Thank you very much. If we can do it for all the victims that suffered during the 22 years. So you can observe a minute of silence. Thank you very much indeed. Shall we continue?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Rsm Jeng, could you kindly take us through your educational background, including where you went to school and what you studied?
Council, before we start, I'm not very good in keeping dates, but I could go as the events happened. I did my primary school in Malfa Halfdai, and then later to Sukuta Secondary School, after which I attended the Anglican Vocational Training Center in Farafenye, and it was there after my completion of vocational training, at our passing out ceremony, that the camp commander at Farafenye, Commander F.R.I. Jame, was invited as a guest of honor, who spotted me out there, and then after having discussion with him, he encouraged me to go and join the Pioneers Engineering. At the time, then the army was just starting, and then we joined the first recruit for engineering for GNA, Gambia National Army.
Do you recall the date when you enlisted? If you don't, that's perfectly fine.
Yes, we were enlisted in 1st August 1993.
93?
Sorry, 83.
So RSM, I will go through your military career, and then we'll talk about your role as RSM of the Army. Okay. Thereafter, we will talk about the events of 21st July, 1994. We'll also address the events of 22nd July, 1994. We will talk about your victimization, and then we will conclude with your views on institutional reforms.
Thank you.
So you joined the Gambia National Army. You enlisted on the 1st of August, 1983.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a bit about the training that you received when you joined?
In 1983, that was when the Gambia government choose or decide that they're going to form the army. And those who were supposed to be in the infantry did their selection from Fajara Barracks. And then those to be in the engineering side were selected from Farafenye. That's where the engineers based at the time. So I was one of those who were selected from Farafenye. So it was 50 from Bakau, 50 from Farafenye to make 100. And then we all report to Fajara Barracks, where we went through our medical checkups, everything. And then we were later taken back to Farafenye to do our recruit training. At this time, we had a Ghanaian called George Frimpong, Sergeant Mendy, Kopul Ibu Fai, Kopul Moduba, who were responsible of the training. And then, whilst on training at Farafenye, at some point, the British Army training team, BAT, were invited down by the government. And then they came and then did the observation, Raki. And then it was at this point that when they went back to prepare to come back, then we continued the training at Farafenye 6 months. And just exactly by the time we finished our 6 months training and passed out, the Casamas insurgency started. And then because Gambia was already into this confederation with Senegal and was supposed to send troops to Senegal for the insurgency. So at the time, the Senegalese chief of defense staff came down to see for himself. So when he came, I remember one of the recommendations he made to government was, as that was the first time we had an army, very inexperienced, he would change the plan. Rather than sending us to the battlefield, he chose part of the recruits, about 47 of us, and we were taken to Senegal for training.
You told us about the 6 months training that you had at Farafenye. Can you tell us what type of training that was?
It was a basic recruit training where we have to undergo all sorts of form of military basic trainings, i.e. map reading, field craft, weapon handling, drill, regimentation, etc.
After that 6-month training, were you awarded ranks prior to deploying to Senegal or not at all?
No, not at all. It was only, we had 3 cadet officers, who was Babucarr, Abdoulaye Conte, and Babucarr Cissé, who were appointed cadet.
You provided a witness statement to investigators of the TRRC.
Yes,
Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe you have a copy of that statement in front of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I know you've said that you're not very good with dates,
Right.
but there are some dates that have been mentioned in the statement.
Yes.
Can I first of all ask you how you came to find out about those dates? Or were they from your memory, or are they dates that you got from somewhere else?
I know every event or incident that happened. But seeing the way councillors were grilling people who sit on the head chair, I went and do some homework, tried to find out as much as I could. We have a colleague whom I served, joined with the same day in the army. He was the army chief clerk. He's genius. He can tell you every date of every event, incident in the army. So I contacted him. He went through the records. I gave him the dates I was looking for, and then he provided me with those dates.
And these are dates mainly in relation to your own career promotion, is that
yes.
right? And just so you feel at ease, RSM, to the extent that you recall dates, please provide them. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. You can always refer to things that happen in relation to events, and that will give us sufficient clarity.
Yes, ma'am.
According to your statement, in February 1984, you went to Cowlack for an instructor's training course. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about that training?
In February 1984, we left Gambia to Senegal for training. And this training, we didn't know what it was about until we got to Senegal. And when we got to Senegal, we were told that we're going to start a training called CAT1, Certificate Aptitude Technique Numero 1. This was like a corporal course. When we got there, first thing they did to us was that no one enters into their dormitories with civilian hairs. But we were not civilian at the time. So we were all saved and asked to go and throw our hairs about 2-3 miles away by running, crawling, till we got to the point where we were supposed to throw those hairs. We did that and then came back. From there we knew that there is a lot more ahead of us. So we embarked on the training. It was a tough one. When we were on the training, after our first, second, third month, we started running out of our stuff that we took with us to Senegal, our soap, toothbrushes, etc., etc. So at one point, we all came together, and decided that we bring everything we have and then put it at a central position. So if, like in the morning, if anybody needs to go and have bath, we go in groups. Then we will take out one soap and then we'll use it. We share it. We were sharing everything at the time. Again, for the training as well, we had a lot of problems because we were not supplied with any stationaries whatsoever. Remember, when we run out of writing materials, we were using carton boxes, split them to write our notes. And the course was in French. None of us did French, or with the little we did in our secondary schools, etc. Again, we had no dictionaries to be able to translate. After a month or two, we were lucky to have 2 young lieutenants who were attached to the training school who went out their way to get us translated dictionaries, French, English, and they devoted their private time after classes to come down and sit with us, helping us to translate our notes.
Did these tough conditions lead your group to take any action?
Yes, because what happened is it went to a point that definitely it was like a dead end. So we tried to request to see the authorities, but we were told that doesn't happen in the Senegalese military. We did all efforts, nothing happened. And then, this is where we all decided one evening that the following day, we should just sit down till they come to our aid, someone come to our aid. And what we did was, when we were going, we were issued with one very scary uniform, camouflage, combat camouflage. We all decided to be in that camouflage uniform the following morning and then just sit in the dormitory. No one should leave the dormitory. And that's what we did. And then when it was time for us to fall in for lessons, no one went out. And then later, the camp commander himself came, and we said to him, we want to speak to Colonel Ndaunjai in the Gambia.
Who was Colonel Ndaunjai at that time?
He was the army commander, Gambia National Army. So I think the message was relayed, but we were not convinced that it was going to happen. And again, like as Gambians, we believe whoever stands in front of you with this age of your dad is your dad, uncle, your uncle. We had an instructor there, he was from Casamas. He could speak very good Mandinka, etc. We were very able to relate with him. He came and appealed with us before we all came out and even talked to the camp commander at the time. After doing so they sent us back in, and then the message was relayed to Gambia that we wanted to speak or see our commander, which happened. He came with the paymaster, who was Major Taro at the time, and then we all went, and then he spoke to us, and then we all expressed our grievances to him as to the conditions we were in and all that was happening around us. Because we needed, like, when we were doing sports, we had no sport shoes, nothing absolutely. We were using our combat boots for all activities. So we explained our problems, everything to the colonel. He noted down everything and then told us that they've also brought along our wages for us, the period we were there. And this is where the problem started. At the time, our salaries was $177. We were in Senegal, and they came to pay us, and they brought dollars and not CFA. When we received the money, no sign of nothing, but after when the commander left, some of the boys decided that they had enough, especially with the training itself. They were leaving. Some of us tried to convince them that conditions will change now that the commander came and then have listened to our grievances, but we shouldn't leave because of the toughness of the training. Because I remember before we left for Senegal, we were assembled in front of the guard room in Fajara Barracks, and all the elderly people we have at the time, in the camp at the time, were giving us advice. And I remember one WO2 Sambo. He said to us, "My sons, you people are going to a foreign land. What I want you people to know that is, even in your own house, if you have another child to be brought up with your own kids, if you observe, he may feel that you're not treating him right with the others. So if you people go to Senegal, just have it at the back of your mind that every day is -1. However tough the training is, it will come to an end." For me, that keeps ringing in my head. So I said, no, I will not leave because of the toughness of the training. And the reason again for that was, after my passing out, before coming home to show my parents my achievements also, I went straight across, joined the army, did everything before coming home to tell them that I've joined the army. So I would not leave because of the toughness of the training.
So in fact, that was the first protest, in a way,
In the Gambia National Army.
in the
yes.
Gambia National Army, just a little over 6 months after inception. Is that
Yes.
correct? So after that, how long did you stay for that training in Kaolack?
We did the first phase, which was over 6 months. On completion of the training, we came back and was expecting that they're going to give us our corporal ranks. It didn't happen, and we were given, I think, a one-week holiday. Just even before the 1 week finishes, we were called back, and then 15 of us were taken back to Senegal to go and do the second phase, which was CAT 2. The first phase was CAT 1, Certificate Aptitude Technique numero 1, and then the second phase was Certificate Aptitude Technique numero 2.
So after the training in Kaolack, you returned to the Gambia. At the time, did you participate in any other training upon your return to the Gambia?
Actually, something happened in Kaula just before our training. We were so excited. We did very well, all 15 of us. And then we prepared to go, when we were prepared to go and do our parachute jumps to have our para medals, administration just cut it short that we finished the training, we shouldn't stay there anymore, and then we were brought back. We didn't like at all. We wanted them to allow us to complete that part of the training, which was very, very, very important in our military careers. So we came back expecting that they're going to give us our sergeant ranks after finishing both certificates. That didn't happen. Then the British Army training team was already in town to recruit their first intake, who always tease us as zero intake. They are the first intake, but actually we are the first. But nonetheless, they are young brothers. We leave it to them. So when we came, we saw the British, and then they came and they said they're not going to give us the sergeant ranks because they don't know the depth of our training and what we can and what we cannot. So we were all put to a cadre course, which we did for a couple of weeks, covering all aspects of the basic military training again, including regimentation, and we all came out very well. And I remember it was there and then that about 8 of us was straight away taken to the training wing to become training instructor in the Gambia National Army.
So if I understand correctly, you were a sergeant as well as a training instructor at that time?
No, I started as we were given corporal ranks.
Corporal, okay.
We were all given corporal ranks. Instead of the sergeant rank, we were expecting to be given when we came back.
So after that, can you tell us when you had your next promotion?
My next promotion was whilst in the training wing. I believe recommendation came from Sergeant Major Allen and the BAT team. Then I was given a sergeant rank and then was prepared to go to pipe right at the guards depot for all arms drill course.
It says here that that took place in 1985. Can you tell us in which country that's based in?
Great Britain, United Kingdom.
Do you recall how long that course was?
I was there for 3 months.
And after that, you returned to the Gambia?
Yes, after that I returned to the Gambia and went back to training wing and continued training.
Did your rank change at all after that training?
At the time, no.
So can you tell us when you received your next promotion?
I was in the training wing, trained a couple of other recruit intakes. And then when the B company was formed, I was promoted to staff sergeant, which is the rank next to sergeant. And then I was the B Company, moved to B Company.
At that time, where was the B Company based?
In Yundum.
And do you recall for how long you served in that capacity?
Not how long, but I was there a couple of years as a staff sergeant before being promoted to WO2 Class 2, Warrant Officer Class 2, and became Company Sergeant Major for B Company.
Thereafter, what was your next promotion?
I was a WO2 for a while before being promoted to WO1 and appointed RSM of 1 battalion.
And WO1 meaning Warrant Officer First Class?
Warrant Officer Class 1.
That's 1. It says here that was in 1987, is that correct?
Thank you, ma'am.
I would like to now focus on the role of an RSM. Can you explain to us what the role of an RSM is within the Army?
As an RSM, you are responsible of discipline and welfare of all soldiers. That is from the recruit, the private soldier, lance corporal, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, WO2, and all WO1s.
Are those class of, those ranks known under any particular umbrella?
Yes. From lance corporal to corporal are the junior NCOs, junior non-commissioned officers. And sergeant, staff sergeant are senior non-commissioned officers. And the WOs are warrant officers, Class 1 and Class 2.
Just to make sure everyone is on the same page, what is the difference between a commissioned officer and a non-commissioned officer?
A commissioned officer, those are officers commissioned they are responsible of command and control the men. The non-commissioned officers are directly responsible of the men. And
when you say men, are you referring to ordinary soldiers?
Ordinary
right?
soldiers.
Non-officers.
Non-officers. Lance corporals, for example, they are like in the army, we have what we call sections, platoons, companies, battalion. At section level, you have a lance corporal, a full corporal who will be responsible of, who will be the section commander, and then the lance corporal will be his section 2IC, and they will have between 8 and 10 men under their control, command and control. And then times 3 give you a platoon. And then they will have a platoon sergeant. The 3 sections will come under a sergeant, who will be the platoon sergeant. And then times 3 of a platoon again gives you a company. Then they will get a company sergeant major. And their company headquarters, where they will have a staff sergeant who will be responsible of the admin of the company. And then they will have, each platoon then will have a second lieutenant or a lieutenant who will be their platoon commanders and platoon 2ICs. And then the company will have a captain who will be the company commander.
And just to complete that, 3 companies then form a battalion.
Battalion, plus 3 plus another company headquarters form a battalion.
So as RSM, you're responsible for discipline and welfare of the men?
Of the men, and checking on the officers as well.
So let's take it step by step. How would you describe your relationship with the men, first of all?
Yes. My relationship with the men will have to be on one aspect, discipline. Like we used to say, all of them have to toe the line when it comes to discipline. number one. The RSM will be responsible every morning to make sure all platoons or companies, if it's a battalion, companies, conduct their master parade. We have master parade every morning, where to ascertain how many soldiers we have for the day, who is sick, who is absent, who is on training, etc., etc. And then that will be compiled and then bring to the RSM, where all details will be taken down on a board, breakdown, etc., and then taken to the quartermaster in order for the feeding to be able to be catered for that day. And again, the RSM as well is responsible to make sure all company sergeant majors don't flinch for a moment in anything when it comes to discipline and training.
In terms of comparing your relationship as an RSM with the men and looking at that against the relationship of the officers who command the men, how would you describe the link between you and the officers in relation to control of the men?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, that was a bit of a complicated question. I'll rephrase. The officers have control of the men, as in their role as commanders of companies, for example. As RSM, you're responsible for the discipline of the men. In essence, my question is, who has more control over the men, more influence over the men?
I would say the RSM, what happened is because he's directly in contact with the men through his senior NCOs and junior NCOs, I would say the RSM have more control over the men. But when it comes to command, the officers go ahead and do whatever activities, duties, command they have in regarding to the job.
So if the RSM notices incidences of indiscipline among the men, what kind of steps can the RSM take directly?
I will first find out under who they are. I would first tend to deal with that person first before he goes to find out. Because as an RSM, it will be very difficult for you to come across soldiers doing something. But if it's brought to my attention, that soldier must be under a sergeant and a possibly company sergeant major, whom I will call into my office, address to go and find out, and then get back to me. And then we take it from there. But at platoon and company levels, if any of the soldiers happens to misbehave or have any disciplinary problem or whatsoever, they will be checked by their sergeants and then report to their company sergeant majors. If it's something that needs my attention, they'll bring it, and then we take it from there.
So as an RSM, can you lock up a soldier, for example, on your own?
Yes, without question. Because RSM is supposed to be a symbol of discipline. So if any soldier is found to be off the line, the RSM will deal with him. I can lock anyone.
When it comes to investigations in relation to the men, does the RSM play a particular role if one of the men is being investigated for something?
Yes, if any of the men is being investigated for whatsoever reason, RSM must be aware. It could either be the RSM who initiated the investigation, because like I said, if it's something to do within the barracks, the RSM have a group of police that are called provosts. He will set them out to go and look for that individual and then find out what happened and then bring him to the guard room, where he would later be marched into my office, and then I find out what went wrong. If not, we can refer the case to the military police if it's something outside the barracks, etc., for them to go and carry out an investigation. and then report back to me, and then I will take it to the adjutant and commander if need be.
A similar question in relation to the officers. If the RSM finds that an officer is acting in an indisciplined manner, what recourse does the RSM have in relation to officers?
If it's a minor thing that I need to just caution him, I will do there and then. But they are officers, commissioned officers. Their discipline is the commander and the adjutant who is responsible. But I can caution them, but there is a way of doing it as well. I can caution an officer, but at the end of whatever statement I make, I have to say, sir. If not, I could in turn be subordinating that officer, and he can go and report me.
So you can tell them off, but essentially you have to end your statement with sir.
Yes. Or if I found any officer to be doing something that is off the record or so, I can tell him, or I can go straight to the commander or adjutant to tell him about the officer's behavior and character.
When a non-commissioned officer wants to become a commissioned officer, does the RSM have a role to play in that regard?
Yes. Because what happened in the army then is we have an officer cadre that's organized. To become an officer, you have a lot of criteria and standards to meet. If you don't, I'm afraid we don't select you to go for that cadre. And if you are selected for the cadre, you have to go and prove yourself beyond reasonable doubt that you can wear that pip if you happen to have the chance. And during that time, if you happen to be selected and then you're doing the cadre course at the training school and you happen to excel and then been appointed officer cadet, then you are attached to the RSM for orientation. RSM puts you through, prepare you to become an officer. RSM prepares them to become an officer. And even if someone is newly promoted to second lieutenant, waiting to go for their training, they are attached to the RSM who puts them through. And when they happen to go out for their training, when they come back again, there is a period that the RSM will be looking after them in terms of shaping them up.
That's very helpful for us to understand your role as RSM and what kind of influence you had in the military. Throughout your period, throughout your appointment as RSM, did you maintain the rank of WO1, Warrant Officer First Class?
Yes, ma'am.
And in 1994, how many RSMs were in the Gambia National Army?
In 1994, we had 3 RSMs, all share the same rank, W1, but being the most senior RSM, W1, I was appointed the Army RSM.
Can you tell us who the other RSMs were?
One was in Farafenye, called W2 Jaju, but he was acting as the RSM. One was in Yundum Barracks, 1 battalion, that was W1 RSM Alaji Faye. Can I just explain about Alaji Faye there, please?
Please proceed.
Alaji Faye's appointment as RSM, what happened was I was supposed to go to UK for treatment, and then someone in the army, no post or position is vacant. It's always filled. I get all the Ibrahima, someone called W2 Ibrahima Ba was supposed to take over from me. So I called him into my office together with all the other senior warrant officer class 2s, including Alaji Fai himself. And I told them that I will be away and Ibrahim Abba will be acting in my absence. And if so, I expect all of them to give him their support for the position. Unfortunately, Ibrahim Abba turned it down. And I asked why. He categorically clearly told me that he cannot do it. To the extent that he was crying that he cannot. I want to kill him. I said, no, you will have their support. He said, no, he cannot just do it. At that point then, I said to him, then someone junior to you will have to step in and take over. And if he does, I expect you to comply and give him the support. I think that word clearing, because a lot of people are asking the question. Alaji Fai was not the senior W2 warrant officer class 2 at the time, why he became my successor. This is what happened.
You mentioned that at some point you went to the UK for treatment.
Yes, ma'am.
Was your condition in any way related to your functions within the army? The condition that led to your treatment in the UK, was it as a result of the work you were doing in the army?
Yes. What happened is between 1985-86, we had a military life exercise in Keneba. Everything that we were using on that exercise was live. And because I was in the at the training wing at the time, we organized everything for the soldiers to go through, at least to have the taste of live exercise. And then remember, when the exercise area was set up, and then at the time we had a recruit intake during the training, and then I was asked to stay back and prepare the recruits. After when the trained soldiers have gone through the exercise, we can take the recruit as well. So I stayed back to prepare the recruits. And when they went and started the exercise, after a couple of days or 1 week, we had a guest from the UK. One general came to see what was happening. He was invited. And then the army commander escorted him there. On the arrival there, I think questions were asked as to who were behind it, etc., etc. And then my name was mentioned, so I was called from Yundum to go and answer the exercise ground. And then was given the instruction that when going, I should take along all the meat we had left at the camp to the exercise ground. And then we did that. And then when we went, and then after the ceremony, I was to come back to Yundum camp to continue with the recruits. I remember the army commander saying, I can use his vehicle to come back, but that's not the norm. I don't want to be in his vehicle. I went with the vehicle. And then the police at Kalaji, it was in Ramadan, the police at Kalaji said to me, that was Yankuba Koli, who was the mayor of KMC, said to me, we'll wait for you to break the fast. I said, yeah, I'll pass by. And then when we were coming back, some of these soldiers who were already injured, I was to bring them back to Yundum for treatment or to RVH. So coming from Keneba up to a point, farmers were preparing, it was around May, I believe, yeah. Farmers were preparing their grounds. Everywhere was cleared. Everywhere was cleared. We saw a very big black cow on the middle of the road. We came very close to it. It went away. We further continued driving down towards Kalaji. And again, we saw cow, where it came from, no one could tell you. And the next thing, just the vehicle somersaulted in a very big ditch. We were there. From here, what I'm saying was narrated to me after. According to people, we were there until about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Someone was passing with his bicycle. He saw us there and went back to Kalaji police station and then told them what happened. And then they tried to get in touch with the exercise people, and the people, the military at the exercise ground, told them what happened. And then, according to them, vehicles started converging, and then ambulances were summoned to the area. There, I was told, because when they came, there was no sign of life in me. So all the injured soldiers were transported in different ambulances, and I was placed on a stretcher, left at the veranda of Kalaji police station. Sorry. Yeah, I was left at Kalaji police station at the veranda, and I was told that there is this double PC whom I'm trying to locate up to now, can find her, called Jatu Janko, who borrowed them his attire, and I was covered that I was dead. I was there till when one of the new trucks that could carry a stretcher came, and I was placed on it, drove down to RVH. They said I arrived at RVH around 1 a.m. and Dr. Jones was still waiting for the last casualty to come in. So it was then.
Please take your time, Rsm.
Yes.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm okay. No. Let me just do this. Yeah, let me do this one. Let me just do this one, yes. So, Dr. Jones, after doing his normal check, he told them that he thinks there is still life in this soldier. So I was taken to theater for resuscitation. I was there till about 3 in the morning, after 3, before I responded. But I went into coma. Sorry, ma'am.
Please take your time. Don't rush at all. We're here to listen to you.
So I went into coma, and I was in coma for about 6 weeks. And then when I responded back, X-rays didn't show that I sustained a fracture at the time, because my neck was swollen. It was after the 6 weeks, going between 6 and 10 weeks, they were able to do a proper X-ray, and then it shows that I sustained a fracture between C5 and C6. It's a medical term, that is the color, sustained a fracture. So I was in hospital for some time. And at one point, I had a cousin who died in a light aircraft, and then people thought that it was me. And then it was just too much at the time. So I was in hospital.
You said that you were injured on your collarbone. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that injury affect your ability to either move around or to do your work?
At the time when I was in the hospital, yes, but after when I was discharged from the hospital, they said they were going to arrange for me to be evacuated for treatment. This was in 85, 86. It never happened. I was going to physiotherapy with the collar, neck collar. Couple of months after until it healed, basically naturally it heals, I went back into duties. I was never evacuated at the time. I went back to duties, serving again. But from time to time, I do have problems, and then would feel numbness on my left side. That was what continued until at the time which was in
Or perhaps you can tell us in relation to events at the time. When did you go to the UK for treatment? What was happening around that time in the Gambia?
Sorry?
I'm trying to situate when you went to the UK for treatment in relation to events at the time. So let's take, for example, the Gambia's involvement in the peacekeeping or peace enforcement mission in ECOWAS.
Yes.
In relation to that, can you situate when you went to the UK for treatment?
Yeah. In fact, before I went to UK for treatment, after recovering, slightly recovered, and then started back my normal duties, it was when Gambia joined ECOMOG to dispatch soldiers to Liberia. Remember at the time when we were preparing the soldiers to go to Liberia, I had a lot of problems, the camp at the time, because everyone wanted to be part of that contingent, but not all of them can go. We were sending only a company, which was about 100, 150 men, but every soldier wanted to go. And we could not wait until it was time for the deployment before we start picking soldiers from other units to come. No, a company was tasked and assigned for the deployment, so we prepared them. But my problem was soldiers were coming, trying to get themselves into that contingent to go to Liberia. So it was a big problem with me. And I didn't go because I was the RSM. They had their company sergeant major who went with them.